Hey, I want to tell you guys, this is different. This is new for me. And there's a little anxiety. I always preach out of a computer. Well, my wife, who is in Arizona, has the computer. And so all you millennials, they say this is paper. You can't scan it. Here's what's funny is this is the only 3-ring binder we had. The sermon is not going to be that long. But it's all we had. Next week, Lacey and I will be here, and I will be back to preaching out of a computer like Jesus did it. So this isn't new. You guys have heard me say this. You guys have been around. I have for years, I've carried this, I don't want to say guilt, but probably borderline sense of guilt, because I've been around church my whole life. I've known more pastors than I can even begin to express. And the thing is, a lot of the pastors have a very similar, personality type. It's a very similar approach, and it's a very effective one. And I'm not that. And so there have been times where I've felt this sense of like, am I not doing enough, or should we be doing more? And this is, in some ways, my heart goes out to you guys, because I'm like, oh man, I remember how my grandpa used to be, and like, imagine what a guy like that could do here. And so there's just always this sort of back and forth, right? And there actually are pastors who love doing weddings. Think of that. They just love them. Nope. I like being outside. I'm in and out. So just know I've been working through this, because anytime that somebody has a concern, there's this, hey, we've known pastors who've done it this way. Please understand, I agree, I understand. And so my prayer has been, God, please help me to sort of balance this. I remember when I was in school, they would tell you in math that there's on both sides of the equal sign. Whatever you do to this side, you have to do to this side, right? In math. Well, in my mind, I'm going, okay, God, I see everything that you're doing in my life and everything that you're doing with me personally. And let me tell you, if God's not doing something in my life personally, then I have nothing to offer you guys as a pastor. God has to do it in my life first. I have to feel like that God's leading me personally. And so I feel like that we're good. Like in my walk with God, I feel like that things are good and he's blessing us, and like the relationship has never been better. And then I see that the church in a lot of ways has never been better. The church is healthy and it's doing well. So then there's sort of in the back of my mind, there's like, but there's sort of these lingering pieces that I don't really know what to do with. And so, I find myself asking God, I'm like, God, am I holding us back? Like as good, I'm going to be turning pages today. You'll know that I'm moving forward in the sermon because I'll do this. It's going to be a way bigger distraction to me than it is to you guys. But as good as we're doing, I think that's the concern. Like, could we be doing better? What if I was like other pastors? What if I did things more like other pastors? Could we be doing better? Or, the flip side of that is maybe part of what we're seeing is God blessing us because we're not doing it the way that we've seen it done. And so, I've been praying. I'm like, okay, so for 2018, as a leader, you want to be able to put vision out there. When I say vision, where are we going? How are we going to get there? And that's a hard thing to do. Let me tell you, that's a hard thing to do when you're still in your own mind, like, God, would you please help me to understand? I don't know how to say any clearer, I guess, than this. Would you please help me to understand who I am in ministry? If I can't put my finger on who I am in ministry, then it's a confusing thing to try to lead a group of people. And so as I've been praying about it, one of the number one questions that I hear, I would say far and above any other question that people ask me is this: when you're gone, who pastors the church? Because I'm in and out a lot. I mean, it's a fair question. Because I am in and out a lot. Well, if you're gone, who pastors the church? Well, we got people that, in my mind, I'm going, okay, I know that what God's doing is working here. Here's how I know it. I see God changing people's lives right here. You know people that God is changing their lives, and that to me is the standard of what we hope to accomplish as a church, is that people come in and they experience. Yeah, so my prayer has been, God, would you please show me, would you please allow me to see what kind of a model we're building here, because it's not like anything else I've ever seen. I've never seen anything else operate the way that we operate. Everything that we do is in teams. We've got the core values. So many of the core values are in relationship to the culture, honestly, because it's the same word, it's the same Jesus. So a church doesn't need to decide which Jesus we're following, right? I mean, theology and doctrine and things like that, we shouldn't have to decide which Bible we're listening to. In that regard, it's all common. Every Bible-believing church is common. So when you say things like vision and values and things like that, it's always in relationship to the culture. And here's why. Because we are called to reach the people that God's called us to. So here's what I feel like God's been leading me through. And I hope this is enough of an answer because it's all I got. So in Hosea, we're going to go to Hosea. And the thing about what was going on with Israel is they had turned their back on God. And it doesn't say necessarily, you don't see that they're like in huge outright rebellion to God necessarily. They just weren't in communion. They just weren't in relationship with God. I've heard it said this way, that religion is a discussion about God, where relationship is a discussion with God. Have you ever heard this? And so they had kind of gone to this, just turn their back. They had a working relationship with Egypt and Assyria. So Israel, they're sort of standing on their own 2 feet. They're comfortable, and they're sort of navigating their own lives separate from God, and they had become separated from God. So God calls Hosea the prophet. He calls him to the nation of Israel to help bring them back to a relationship with God. So this is the scene. This is where we're going to start. It says in verse 2, so chapter 1, verse 2, it says, when the Lord began to speak through Hosea, the Lord said to him, go marry. Now, wait a minute. Isn't that how all good ministries start? You know, all the Bible colleges, they're saying, is a ring by spring or your money back? God says, all right, you're about to start the ministry. And Hosea goes, okay. And he goes, you got to get married. And Hosea's like, okay, cool. But then the next word is to a promiscuous woman. I mean, like spiritually promiscuous? You mean like she's like not like developed in her faith maybe? Nope, a prostitute. That's going to be your wife. It's in your Bible too if you want to go look it up. And have children with her, for like an adulterous wife, this land is guilty of unfaithfulness to the Lord. So he married Gomer, and she conceived to him a child. Here's something I want to catch real quick, is that so many times we view God at a law level, that we've broken the law. We broke this law or we broke that law. And you know that like think of it like in a relationship to the police. Like if you're speeding, right, and you're going faster than you should, and you see the cop and you're like, cool. And I think sometimes we do that. Like maybe we know we're not where we need to be, but we walk into church and we're like, hi. Just act cool, man. Just like you're not doing everything right, but it's okay. And we think of like our relationship with God along the lines of the law. And God goes, I want you to demonstrate for them that it's more of a divine intimacy. That God's desire for you is to have a divine, intimate nature, the relationship that says he wants to know who you are. It says that he has the hairs on your head counted. Let me tell you, so much it rides on the fact that God is way more interested in you than you are in him. God is seeking a relationship with you. That could be the whole sermon. We could stop right there and go, God wants to have a relationship with you. And that when we turn our backs on God, it's less like it's a legal matter. It's less of a legal matter. It's more of an unfaithfulness to the intimacy that he desires to have with you. We forget that. When we get distracted, we forget the intimate nature of God. Okay, that's good news because it says that God has a desire to know you. Now, if you're Hosea, though, that's good news for us. Like, hey, God wants to know, like you, he wants to love you, he wants to have a relationship. That's good for us. But imagine if you're Hosea and you're like, I mean, that's one way we could do that. What if there were other ways that we could go marry a prostitute? Now, listen, man, I'm talking to the men for a second. You got to remember there are reputations. You know, there's an appearance. You're the new preacher in town. This certainly probably isn't the career trajectory that other prophets had followed, right? Don't you think that when Hosea shows up and he marries a prostitute, don't you think that there were people who are like, what denomination are you? Like, where did you, like, study? Because my grandpa, he used to go to church and like his pastor just married like a nice lady. And she could sing and play the piano. Men, talking to you for a second, I want to ask you an honest question. If you came in virtuous, full of God, and you were to rescue a streetwalker and go, hey, I'm going to make an honest woman out of you. You come with me. Life is about to change for you. Be honest. Be honest. You don't have to say anything. You can just sit there in a pool of your own guilt. But don't you think Don't you think a little part of you is like, you're welcome? I mean, you wouldn't say it. Surely, right? Surely you wouldn't say it. But maybe in your heart you would think, God has really used me in your life. Think of hey, Lacey's in Arizona this week, and let me tell you, a good wife, oh my gosh, I have been wandering around the house like a child. I was here this morning at 7:45. Church doesn't start till 8:30. I was here early because I was hungry. That's real. That's a true story. Like if you guys say, oh, thank God for Lacey, you don't know how bad it really is. So God does awesome things to these marriages, but don't you think that there are times the temptation of Hosea would be like, I'm a pretty good guy. So we know in every story, I quizzed a few people this week. In every story, you know that there's a hero, right? And if you have a hero, you have to have a villain. There's got to be a good guy and a bad guy. And generally, in most stories, there's also Lacey said damsel. Somebody else said, like the recipient. Because if you're a hero, who are you a hero to, right? So as we're going through this story, you've got Hosea, and he's the new preacher, and he's going to demonstrate how we've been unfaithful to God and how God has a desire for intimacy with us, and he's going to demonstrate this through rescuing somebody off the streets. It would be easy to go, the hero would be Hosea. The damsel, we know now that that's Gomer. Her name's Gomer, which if you're looking for a name, if you're having a baby soon, it's a Bible name. So she would probably, to this point in the story, she would probably be like the damsel. She would probably be the princess in the tower, so to speak. But the villain, that was kind of hard because so far you can always say the devil, but that's kind of a cop-out. That's an easy one. In this specific story, we've got Hosea, we've got Gomer, we've got the children of Israel, and there's some pieces at play, but I would say the villain at this point would still be a question mark, okay? So Hosea 2, you would think that Gomer, her response would be, how lucky am I? Oh man, my life has changed. Somebody saw virtue in me when I didn't see it in myself, and here she's supposed to be a model wife. Well, Hosea chapter 2, as we're skipping ahead, says this, is that Gomer went on to have 2 more children, but they weren't Hosea's. Isn't it easier when the Bible stories are like, and then they were perfect? Does it help you to know that even in the Bible, there are people who struggle to get it right? I connect so much more with somebody who wants to do good, but for some reason seems to continue doing bad for a while. I'm like, oh, yes, I have a group. So she has 2 more children, and they weren't Hosea's, and she became lost in her old life. Now listen, we're going to talk more about that next week. Please be here next week. There's some cool stuff left to be found in this story. But for the sake of this week, we're just going to say she became lost again. She had been saved from her old life by someone who had been called to her by God. It was this big virtuous sort of a thing. And it says that she fell away again. She had 2 more children out of wedlock. She fell away. So in verse 3, we're going to go to chapter 3, It says this. It says, the Lord said to me, go show your love to your wife again. Though she is loved by another man. Think about this. You're like, oh, God called me in the ministry. God's going to use me to do some, marry a prostitute. Okay, I'm going to do. Oh, and she left. And she's gone. And I have to go get her again. Love her as the Lord loves the Israelites, though they turn to other gods and love the sacred raisin cakes. I looked that up. It was just this. It was the sweetness of sin. Let me tell you that if you ever hear someone go, sin is so bad and there's nothing enjoyable. No, there is a certain level of reward to sin, but there's also an expense to sin. And it says that even though she had developed a taste or a desire or an appetite for sin, go find her and bring her back. Now, it says that she was on the auction. That she became so lost in this life that she'd already been rescued out of. Now think of this. Moms, if it was your son. Men, if it was you. Men, if it was your buddies. How many times do you think, just again, being honest, don't you think that if your buddy brought a girl out of a bad past, loved her, gave her an honest life, and she left him, and she found herself back on the auction block, don't you think that there would be a part of you that's like, well, I mean, I'm not saying anybody deserves it, but. Because aren't we righteous? Like, oh, I mean, sometimes here's what we say to our kids. You can choose your actions, but you can't choose the consequences. Sure. So, I mean, there's all sorts of speeches we could be giving Gomer of like, hi, Gomer. I mean, this breaks my heart to see you like this, but. Because remember, Hosea, the hero, I mean, I didn't want this for you. I can want it for you, but I can't, all these things. And you even hear this in church. Of like, this is not what we wanted for you, but this is what you chose for yourself. Don't you think that Hosea's buddies were like, dude, no, what? No. If she did it once, Hosea, listen, I know, I get it. You're doing like good for you. You're a good guy. You've already done more than out, but man, hey, you got to cut your losses on this one, man. She's on the auction block, and I know that that's really bad for her, but I mean, what are you going to do? God said, go back and get her. Don't you, I mean, honestly, don't you think Hosea at this point has to have at some point thought like, how are we with two wives? Like, where are we, could maybe like, she could be like let's call her the sermon analogy wife. And then I could have like the like Bible school wife. Verse 2 of chapter 3, it says, so I bought her for 15 shekels of silver and a homer and lethek of barley. Now, it's widely accepted this, and this is so interesting, that slaves then in that day would have cost 30 shekels. But it says that he paid 15 shekels plus a measure of barley. So you could say, well, maybe she wasn't worth what the other slaves were, but it's more widely accepted this, is that he couldn't afford the asking price with what he had, so he had to give, think of this, Hosea had to give everything that he had. He had to go completely broke to purchase her back from a situation that she got herself into. He gave all of it. That seems so unfair. It goes on. He doesn't say, here, because again, guys, if we're being honest, I feel like that would be an uncomfortable car ride home. Oh yeah, I would love to fill up, but guess what? We're broke. Oh, you're thirsty? Maybe you should have thought, no, I'm kidding. But you have to think, the nature of people would be, I saved you once, you had this opportunity, you just cost me everything. But here's what he says. You are to live with me many days. You must not be a prostitute or intimate with any man, and I will behave the same way towards you. What he's saying is, come back with me. You're going to be loyal to me, and I'm going to be loyal to you. That story in and of itself is just a lot. That's a lot to take in. That Hosea brings her in out of her old life. She falls away again. He goes and pursues her, purchases her back with everything he's got, brings her in, and doesn't treat her like a prostitute, doesn't treat her like she's unclean or unworthy, looks at her and says, I'm going to love you as though you never made a single mistake. Now, this is Old Testament stuff, so you just have to think that when Hosea got to heaven and the idea of Jesus was spelled out, he was like, oh, okay, now I get it. I'll be honest, I wasn't sure what you were up to. Seemed a little bit like I was getting the raw end of the deal. Because Hosea did it all right, Gomer seems to have done it all wrong. Okay, so let's go again. Hero, it seems, would be Hosea. But now Gomer, That's different because is she the damsel? Maybe, but couldn't you also make the argument that she's also the villain, sort of? Couldn't you see, in your mind, couldn't you kind of get there? Like, I'm not saying she was or she wasn't. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying if somebody were to go, Gomer's the bad guy, Hosea is the good guy, you could go, yeah, she cost him everything. I'm always amazed at this. I'm always amazed at the layers of a story. Because at first, you can kind of catch the story of Jesus in there. You can kind of follow along. But if there's a detail listed in the Bible, it matters. Even if we don't see it, even if we don't understand it, that when the Bible specifically lists a detail, it matters. And maybe someday down the road, we'll get it. Maybe someday we won't. But in this one, here's the significance. The names and the meanings of the names. That the names of every character in this story matter. We're not going to get to the kids. But just specifically, when you look at the name Hosea, it was the same as Joshua. It meant salvation. So let's back up to the beginning of the story. It says that the nation had turned its back on God, and when the people weren't looking for God, God sent them what? Salvation. That doesn't say that when you're lost and you're not sure where you're supposed to be going and life isn't making sense, or maybe you're in sin or you're in rebellion, that if you try hard enough and that if you clean yourself up and you work your way back and you really just grit your teeth and demand more and you white knuckle your way back, that you can eventually find your way to salvation. If that's been your approach and it hasn't worked, please understand it was never the plan for you to find your way back. It says that salvation came and found people who were lost. Doesn't that add some depth to that story instantly, that Hosea was the representative of salvation? And the name Gomer, beautiful name, Gomer. Gomer means completion. The completion, the salvation, that means this, that she was lost in sin. And the completion was that when salvation found her and brought her back. But now, that's not where it ends. Listen, if every story in the Bible was that we were lost, salvation found us, and we were changed, and we never went back, even that would be almost an unattainable goal, because I know you guys. I know how people work. And we're famous for having this experience with God, and things are like, oh, he loves me, and it's personal and it's intimate. But what happens over a period of time? People are famous for experiencing salvation, for experiencing God. You come to church and you hear the worship, or you hear something about Jesus, and it becomes personal, it becomes intimate, it becomes relational. But what happens is you look up and you go, I was going to do so good this time. This was going to be the time. It was going to be different. This was going to be the time that all of a sudden life was going to change. How many times you see people come into church and give it a solid effort, but over a period of time, we find ourselves back on the auction block. We find ourselves back lost in the old sin. We find ourselves back lost in the old habits, and we are just as hopeless then as we were before. I keep wanting to swipe. So the whole story of Hosea is a story of salvation coming to people that weren't looking. And even after salvation, the relentless pursuit that Jesus has for all of us. This relentless pursuit that says, I haven't given up on you. I still have this desire to bring you back in. And it says that the same way that it cost Hosea everything, it cost Jesus everything to purchase us back. That he came to earth and he purchased us at a price that cost him everything. How cool is that the story of Jesus was displayed clear back in Hosea? But that means this: if we're trying to decide hero, the truth of the matter is the hero was never Hosea. Hosea was a good guy, don't get me wrong. But the hero of this story would be Jesus. It would be Jesus. The fact that Jesus was willing to go to such great lengths to provide salvation for us when we didn't deserve it. That means that we, you, me, we're the unfaithful wife. We're the unfaithful woman. We're the unfaithful. We're the ones that had the opportunity and we messed it up. We're the ones that continually test God's patience and God's loyalty, that we are the recipient of the hero, right? But that also means this. you should be, a much better forgiver when you realize that your enemies are also not the villain. As people, Hosea included, we are all the recipients of the salvation. That means this, that we have no excuse, because on your best day, on your own, by yourself, apart from Jesus, on your best day, you were a slave being sold in the auction. That before we get so puffed up about ourselves, before we start painting ourselves as Hosea, like, well, you're really lucky I brought you in. No, we're the unfaithful wife. We're the recipient of everything good that God did for us. We were slaves on the auction, and so are the people that you're so offended with. It says that in Ephesians, just to read it real quick, Ephesians 6:12 says, for we're not fighting against flesh and blood enemies, but against evil rulers and authorities of the unseen world, against mighty powers in this dark world, against evil spirits in heavenly places. There's a word in the Bible. Do you ever feel like you've gone to church long enough that there's words you just accept, but you don't have a clue what they mean? Like if we give a pop quiz on what does hallelujah mean, people are like, oh yeah, I can even spell it. There's a J. What does it mean? Well, it means like hallelujah. It's like it's what you say when the preacher says something good. There are words like this. Hallelujah means praise be to God. But there's a word in the Bible called glory. And this is what begins to tie this all together, because the story of Hosea is great. But I think it even goes even beyond just this idea that we were slaves at the auction, that on our best day, apart from God, we were slaves to our sin. We are slaves because we have an appetite for sin. We have an appetite for the sweetness of sin, and we can't afford to pay the price. There's an expense to sin that we can't afford, and that we were slaves on the auction, and that Jesus came back, and here we are covered in our own guilt. Let me tell you something, that we are the ones that deserve the awkward ride home. And Jesus is saying, be loyal to me. I want to be loyal to you. So this word is glory. There's a word called glory. And here's what it means. It means to express importance, honor, and majesty. Bad news for you guys. I don't know what time it is if I don't have a computer. Okay, we're doing good. It's a thick binder. I got some time. To assign majesty, to assign honor, to assign importance. We have a tendency as people to experience a really cool story and assign glory. Please follow me on this. This is such an important part of where we're going this morning. To assign importance to the wrong hero. To take value and honor and importance and bestow it on the wrong hero. And sometimes you're the wrong hero. That when we go, I've really been good to them. They've been really bad to me. And you know, enough is enough. You can only take so much. I've been very good to them. Look how virtuous I've been to them. It's this superiority complex. You know what's crazy? It actually thrives in church. The superiority complex thrives in church because we have the Bible and we have the Word, and we know that it's not our fault. We know that those sinners, they just don't understand. And we assign glory to ourselves because we're the hero, because we know we're following all the rules. And we forget that we're not the hero of our own story. No story in the Bible is about any of the characters. The characters served a purpose to reflect, there's a word, reflect back to Jesus. Hosea, the best that he could possibly accomplish in this story is to reflect what Jesus had done. It wasn't like Hosea said, you know what I want to do? I want to unconditionally love somebody that doesn't deserve it. He was following orders, and he was learning about God as he obeyed in the process of loving somebody that was otherwise unlovable. That the best we can hope for is to reflect the glory of the actual hero of the story. There's a difference there. I hope I can explain this in a way that makes sense, because it makes so much sense in my own head. We almost did it this morning. We almost assigned glory to Hosea. See how easily it happens? We're like, oh man, that Hosea, he's a good guy. He is. But if we're not careful, we assign glory. We go, oh, if we could only live for God like Hosea did. Oh, if we could only be the guy. That's why I'm not a very good Christian. I could never do what Hosea did. And it's not long we've developed a religion of Hosea. Well, I'm a follower of the Hosea dialect of Christianity. I'm a part of the Hosea denomination, and we just love people who run. See what I mean? We're famous for it. We're famous for assigning glory to somebody that is only reflecting. It's like looking at the moon and going, look at how much light the moon creates. The moon in and of itself is a reflection of where the glory actually comes from. Now, this is an important piece because that means this. 2 Corinthians 3:18, let me read this to you. So all of us who have had that veil removed can see and reflect the glory of God. I would love to tell you that I'm so organized that could be like the verse of the year for us. And maybe it will be. It just depends. I have a short memory, and by March I might have forgotten that specific piece. But it says that we can see the glory of God, and because we can see the glory of God, we reflect it to a dark world. And when the world says, you are such a good Christian, we go, oh, hold on. No, I'm Gomer. I was bought on an auction block. I remember being lost in my sin. I remember being lost in my pride. I remember being lost in my... No, listen, what you're seeing in me is available for you. You can reflect the same way that I'm reflecting, but let me tell you where that comes from. That the idea is not to contain the glory, it's to reflect the glory of God, the honor and the importance and the majesty of God that bounces off us to a dark world. Are we following with me this morning? So what does that mean for the vision of the church? Well, first of all, it doesn't mean anything for the church yet. In my own life, it means that I do not feel called to the glory of Jordan Weaver Ministries. If you're going, I didn't know there was such a thing. There's not. And if I have it my way, there will never be. Why? At best, I'm a reflector. And any time that I waste trying to build a brand, now listen, if someone's out there building a brand and doing a good job bringing Jesus to people, this is not about anybody else. This is about something I feel challenged to. This is something I feel called to in my own personal life. That if I'm spending time trying to develop a brand or promote a ministry, then what happens is I become distracted and the hero becomes me, or the hero has become the ministry, and we forget that what we do is about the glory of Jesus. That's it. So that's what it means to me individually. My family, that as a family, because as much as I love you guys and I love this church dearly, I love it with my heart. I look so forward to seeing everybody. I love seeing what God's doing in the lives of people, but this is like fifth place in my life. My relationship with God, my relationship with my wife, my relationship with my kids, the personal relationship that God's brought in, and then as a calling to see that God is able to do then through the church, which means this church is not about building a brand. That's a hard one. Because the guilt that I feel has been, well, maybe we could grow faster if, or maybe we could accomplish more if, and the brand of the church, or let me say it this way, the glory of the church becomes a distraction from the glory of Jesus. The fact that Jesus pursued all of us and bought us, the only thing this church has to offer, and let me say this, and hear my heart, this church is not important on its own. This church as a community, this church as a group of people has nothing to offer because remember, our best day, we were slaves on an auction block. But when we can come together and remember that the goal or the vision of what we do here is to reflect Jesus, and when people walk in, go, he wants to do it for you. Here's what the word says. Here's what the word wants for you. Here's what the word has for you. Jesus has for you. It says in the beginning, the word was with God. The word was God. That the Bible is full of life and he can change your life. That is reflected in the glory of God. And that is literally all that we're going to do here. That's why we have a preaching team. That's why we have people come in. That's why we have, like Robert, let me tell you, you guys may not know this, but Robert Buckner, as much as I love him and as great a guy as he is, Robert is not a licensed minister. Robert is a guy that goes, he bought me too. He bought me too. He changed my life too. Listen, I was where you were, but if you'll follow me, I can reflect the glory of God in your life because he did it for me too. Why is that important? It's important because we're not trying to build a brand. We're not trying to promote a ministry. I have no personal ministry ambition, and that frustrates people who have church ambition. I have none. I draw no joy from it. There's no part of me that looks for an opportunity to go, hi, how are you? I'm Jordan. I'm a pastor. Here's what I love. I love when people go, God got a hold of my life. God bought me off an auction block. I was lost in my sin. My life was a disaster, and he brought me in, and he loved me as though I'd never made it. That's what I get passionate about. I think if we're not careful, we can look like a very unambitious church, and in a lot of ways, we really are. We really are unambitious about a lot of what the world says develops a brand or develops importance for a church. I don't care. Listen, I'm gonna be honest with you, I probably won't ever care. But the way that we're doing church at the moment, where when you show up, you're gonna hear Jesus, you're gonna hear the word of God preached, you're gonna hear authentic worship, I can do that for the next 30 years. I could do that forever because all I'm doing is reflecting what God's doing in my life rather than burnout over the next three or 4 years. There are 1,500 people that leave occupational ministry every month. Why are we so excited about that model? I could light myself on fire on the porch when we get done with church, and you could stay warm for a little while, but when I was burned up, you would need someone else. What I'm saying is that I'm not the hero of the story. The church is not the hero of the story. I'm no longer going to be interested in pursuing the glory of Shiloh Ranch. I want to pursue the glory of God. And what I believe is this, is that everything that we need is found under that umbrella. This is so clunky. I'm trying to make a point. It's going to stay simple. We're going to stay simple. We're going to keep giving cows away. We're going to keep feeding our community. We are never going to be the husband that goes, well, we're a pretty good church. You're lucky to have us. When you walk in, you're going to see a heart that reflects that God did for us what he wants to do for you. And it really can be that simple. I'm going to continue following God the way that I feel challenged to follow God. I'm going to spend time with my family. I'm going to love my kids. With God's help, I'm going to raise 2 successful adults. And we're going to generationally see God do things through the lives of the people here that reflect the glory of Jesus, even if it confuses the glory of the church. Because I want you to know that if you're the slave on the auction this morning, that if you walked in here, maybe afraid that you'd be discovered, maybe fearful that somebody was going to find out you're a phony, let me tell you, throughout history, Jesus is famous for rescuing phonies. Jesus has made a habit of purchasing you with his own blood, with everything he had to bring you back in. And when you go, are you mad? Are you disappointed? You're not the villain. If that helps, you're not the villain, you're the recipient. And his word says, I'll be loyal to you. You be loyal to me, and your life can reflect my desire for you. Let's pray. Lord, I could say a lot of different things. We could go a lot of different directions right here at this point in the service, but I just want to take a minute, God, and say if there's anybody here this morning that feels like they're lost on the auction block, maybe they already experienced salvation. Maybe they came in and they had a moment with you and they find themselves lost again. Please allow the story of Hosea, the reflection of your glory in that story, to reach out and find us right where we are, that your desire is to purchase us back at a price that we couldn't pay for ourselves. Lord, we'll continue to defend the culture. You know, I mean, we can't say we don't have any vision. It's not that. We have a lot of vision at a cultural level. But God, ultimately, please help us to digest the concept that nothing that we do here is for the glory of the church. God, it's to the glory of who you are and your desire for us. So with heads bowed and eyes closed just for a minute, I feel strongly impressed this morning that there are people whose life hinges on knowing what God wants to do for you. That there are people who feel like if you can just keep your head down and go without being noticed, but you've accepted that you're a failure. You feel like that, yeah, of course I'm Gomer. That's what I've accepted about myself a long time ago. And this morning, you need to accept Jesus into your life. You need to accept that forgiveness. You need to accept his story over your story. I want to pray, and I want to just ask if you would, just pray with me. And before we pray, let me tell you, this church can't ever get away from the idea of repentance. We can't forget that repentance is where we turn around, we turn from our sin, we turn away from our old ways. This idea that we continue like we're going and God just somehow begins to bless it, that's not what he says. It says that as we repent and we turn back to Christ, he gives us a new identity and a new life. So I'm going to pray. Pray with me. Dear Lord Jesus, I repent. I accept your story over mine. Thank you for buying me when I was lost in sin. With heads bowed and eyes closed for a second, let me ask this. If the enemy has been in your ear, the villain, the bad guy, if the enemy has been in your ear reminding you of all the failures, reminding you of all the history, reminding you of all the past, reminding you of all the identity, please don't miss next week. But for this week, if you would say, I need to accept my new identity. I need to accept what Jesus has said about my life. Right where you're at without anybody looking around, would you raise your hand? Yeah, we got hands up all over the place. Second one, if you'd say this, I really felt like Hosea. I really feel like I try and I do a lot of good, and I'm realizing that I was just as lost. I've written myself in as some sort of a hero of a story, and this morning you would say, I need to accept that Jesus did for me. I need to set down my own glory, and I need to reflect the glory of God. Where you're at with heads bowed and eyes closed, not to embarrass anybody, although this would be a temptation. We're not going to do it. If you would say this, I need to accept that Jesus did for me, and I need to reflect his glory and set down my own. Right where you're at, would you raise your hand? Yeah, God. Your word, your love, your desire for us brings us back into right standings. God, your word says that when we're unfaithful, it's a break of intimacy. God, your desire is at a relational level. God, your desire for us is not that we broke the law. It's not that we're somehow in a legal matter. God, your word tells us that you desire intimacy with us. Help us to get to a place where we can accept that for what it is. I pray in Jesus' name, amen.